everybody, this is Angela with Caldwell Banker, and I am here with Feliz Martin, who is lovely because we've already recorded this interview once and our sound failed. So she was gracious enough to have us again. Okay, so tell me who you are, tell me what you do, and we'll have a great conversation.
All right, well, thank you. I'm Feliz Martin. I'm an estate planning attorney here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I've been an attorney now for 20 years, and I currently focus my practice on helping people protect themselves now and into the future with the different estate planning tools.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's really, really helpful. So can you tell me the difference between a will and a trust?
Yes. So a will is a document that comes into play after you pass away. It has no protections during your lifetime, and it is basically your ticket to probate court. It's a document that needs to be filed with the probate court after you pass away, and it tells the court exactly how you want your assets to be distributed to your loved ones. With a trust, it avoids probate. It's a private document, and only the people that you pick in your plan are able to see the document, and they can go ahead and facilitate whatever is needed without having to go through a court process. A trust also protects you during your lifetime. As soon as you sign it, there are protections for your incapacity. Should you ever be unable to manage your assets on your own, you have a successor trustee that steps in and assists you. So it's more comprehensive than a will, but ultimately they do both dispose of your assets after death.
Okay. And can trusts also, if you're like a business owner, can a trust also like decrease your personal liability? Like protect your assets? Not your personal liability, but protect your assets.
So when you create a trust, you do put all of your assets inside by assignment. So if you do have a business, like an LLC or other type of corporation, we would assign the interest in the business into your trust. And it does protect you as far as, if you're incapacitated, who can assist you.
Okay.
But the protections really are for beneficiaries.
Okay.
So a lot of people ask me, doesn't a trust protect me from creditors? No, but it does protect your beneficiaries from creditors.
Okay.
So it's more of a back-end protection.
Okay, so if you should die and have a lot of debt or something like that, your beneficiaries can't be liable for those debts.
Well, it's if the beneficiaries themselves have debt.
Okay.
And so whatever the inheritance is from the trust is protected should they have their own creditor claim. And they don't have to take the money out of the trust. They can leave it in there and they don't have to take it out, even if there is like a judgment where you have to pay for some kind of personal or business liability.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. All right, and so if you are a woman who owns their home, like I work with a lot of solo home buyers, solo women home buyers, what are the must-have legal documents that she would need?
Yeah, so at a minimum, I think everyone who's an adult should have powers of attorney, which is your incapacity plan. If something should happen to you, who can manage, taking care of the household for you? And that goes right down to like making sure the landscaping is done, paying the bills, making sure the utilities stay on. And then also for medical decisions, who do you trust to assist you should you not be able to speak for yourself? So having those documents are really good. Another document that's very helpful too is if you do want to leave your property to someone after you pass away, you can also get a transfer on death deed, which is a way to designate a beneficiary for your real estate without having a will or a trust. So sometimes those are very simple tools that people can have. Maybe they don't have a lot of beneficiaries, maybe their assets aren't complex. They're just gonna, they want to leave their home to like one person. So it really just depends on the situation, but definitely having backup helpers, should you need help managing your assets if something should occur where you're unable to do it yourself.
And your power of attorney, like your medical power of attorney and the person that takes care of the home and the bills can be two different people.
It can totally be two different people, yes. And I really encourage people to think about who is, best suited for this, right? And then talk to them. Are you willing to be my power of attorney for finances? Yes, I know how to do that. I manage my own, and would you help me make medical decisions? Oh gosh, I don't know.
I don't feel comfortable with
Right,
that.
I don't feel comfortable. Yeah, so always talking with who you want to designate is really important. And then have backups, because not only can we not control what happens to us, we can't control what happens to other people too.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so maybe your power of attorney is ill or on vacation, or they're just otherwise unavailable to assist you. So having backups is really important, that you're still protected.
Or heaven forbid something should happen to them first, right? They pass on first.
Yes, that's why it's always good to review your documents too when you do assign people in certain roles, to review those things every 3 years, just to make sure, unless something's happened and you know that you need to update them. But sometimes people tell me they don't even know who they picked or what the document says.
Yeah.
And so it's always a good time to refresh your recollection on whether those choices are still in alignment with what's available, with what you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so speaking of choosing an executor or trustee, right? Because that can be kind of tricky. You don't want to hurt people's feelings. It can be complicated in families. So what are some smart options for that someone might not think of?
Yeah, so when you're saying executor or successor trustee, that's who's in charge when you can't be in charge. Either you're incapacitated or you've passed away, and really communication is key, right? Start with your family and your loved ones, and just have a conversation. This is what I intend to do. Would you be willing to help, facilitate this? And then if they have questions about it, I always encourage my clients, bring in who you're choosing so that they can understand what are their roles and responsibilities, what do the documents look like, logistically, how do things play out. That way they can make fully informed decisions and say yes or no or maybe, right? And sometimes people, especially single women, may not want to burden their loved ones, so to speak, with these roles. So there are corporate trustees and also attorneys who will be, administer your estate plan after you're gone.
Kind of a third-party situation.
Yes,
Okay.
and if you're worried, that maybe I don't want to pick, the oldest child to be in charge of, their siblings, because that could create, a clash of personalities, or, why is my brother in charge of what I get? Why is my sister in charge? Whatever.
Yeah.
And so, just depending on how you want to maintain family harmony, sometimes picking a third-party person is a good idea.
Yeah.
Maybe another colleague is willing to do it.
Okay.
Maybe you do it for them, they do it for you, that kind of thing. Sort of shared, responsibilities for each other.
Okay. So I can see that a lot where like I've seen these sort of golden girl situations, right, where a group of women have bought a large house together, and they sort of take care of each other through their older years.
Yes.
Right? And so they might also be the power of attorney or a trustee.
Definitely. And also looking at the health and age and capability of the persons. If they're older than you, maybe that's not the best pick.
That's not the best
unless they're
pick,
it just really depends. And so like I said, we really talk through who are the persons that you think could do this. And then if somebody really doesn't have anyone to designate, again, we talk about these third party corporations, trust companies that do it, attorneys can do it. So there are still options. So it's not a reason not to plan, because you don't know who to pick. Right? Like let's get a dialogue going to figure out what's going to be the best option.
And so if you are planning to leave your home to someone, are there any hidden tax surprises that people should think about?
Well, so what's nice in New Mexico is there is no inheritance tax. So say that I inherited a home from my parents at the time of their passing. I would not pay any tax on receiving the home, and I get the full value of the home at the time of their passing. So there isn't a step up in basis from when they acquired it. 20 years ago they paid a certain amount, now it's worth a lot more. I wouldn't have to appreciate that gain. One thing though is if I hang on to the house for a while, say I'm not sure I want to sell it or what I want to do,
or it's just hard to make those decisions.
Absolutely.
After losing my father and my stepmother, it took a while to kind of work through things.
Yeah. there's a lot to handle.
There's a lot to handle.
And yet you're handling your grief too,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's nice about estate plans is a lot of questions are answered if someone has already laid out what they want to have happen. And then you can kind of pause and grieve and then follow the instructions when you're ready. But so if later on you decide to sell the house, maybe you've held on to it for 6 months or a year, now it's worth more, hopefully. Then you would pay, the taxes for that step up. So maybe I acquired the house when they passed away in January, it was worth $300,000. Next year I sold it and it was worth $350,000.
Right.
I would appreciate that $50,000 gain.
Right.
And then also sometimes people turn it into a rental property. Right? Maybe they do that. And so I always advise people, I'm not a tax expert, but I know some. So I always advise people talk to a CPA about if what you want to do, what your plans are. Again, that way you're making fully informed choices and on the back end, if I turn it into a rental property and then I sell it, there's going to be different tax consequences than if you sell it right away. So just being informed again about what your options are.
So include a CPA in your planning team. For sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I always like to collaborate with the financial advisor, CPA, realtor if they're wanting to sell. That way everybody knows how this works, right? Because you may see, oh, this house is in a trust. Can we sell it? Oh, this is going through probate. Can I sell it? Right? So it's nice to have the team talk. That way we can, again, make fully informed choices on what's going to be best for the client.
Okay, great. So it's a long conversation. Can you kind of talk about your process when you bring a new client in?
Yeah, so when somebody first contacts me, I want to know what are their specific goals and desires, right? And usually people say, I want to get my ducks in a row, I want to protect myself, I want to provide, for my children, I want, I heard my neighbor has a trust and thinks I should get one. I don't know if it's right for me. So usually people come in with a lot of questions. And so we sit down for an hour and we go over, who you are, what do you have, and what do you want to have happen with that stuff? And then who are you giving it to and what's up with them? Because we want to make sure that we're planning for the beneficiaries so that things go very smoothly. For example, you may have a beneficiary who has special needs. And we want to protect them to continue to receive maybe any public benefits that they receive, but also your inheritance as well. So looking at who's receiving and how, or maybe even someone is just not good with finances, right? And so the grantor is worried about, well, when they receive this, they're just gonna spend it all right away. So there's different ways to protect it and have it sort of trickle out and benefit people for a longer amount of time. And a lot of times, when people come in to talk to me, they just don't know all their options. And so I really like to, again, educate about, this is how a will works, this is how a trust works, so that they know, logistically how it plays out, if that's going to be in alignment for them and their family. That way, again, that they can make choices that are, the best case scenario with what they know now. And then letting them know that these documents can be updated, and they should be updated as life progresses, as things change, you gain or get rid of assets. Your circumstances will evolve, and so can your plan.
Right. So you want to do a checkup every once in a while, and
yes, I recommend every 3 years at least.
Okay. And so when people say that a living trust can make things easier for your family later, how does that actually work? We touched on it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, so it makes things easy for your family because, again, there are instructions laid out on what to do, and you do not have to have any court involvement. And when you do file a will or they don't have a plan and you have to go through probate court, it's a public process. And so anyone can look at the plan, anyone can look up the case, anyone can come in and, I call it vultures start to swarm,
Oh, grandma left me, $500,000, and then
you start getting phone calls.
20th cousin calls in and like, hey.
Yes, it doesn't even have to be someone you know. I've helped a couple of clients file probate, and then they get all of these solicitation calls because it's public record. And here you are grieving, trying to deal with this stuff, and you're getting all this unwanted attention, right? And so with the trust, again, it's completely private to the persons who are named in the trust. And maybe it would be shared like with a financial advisor because you're trying to get, the assets out, something like that. But it is not a public record, and you do not have to go through any court process, which can cause delays. If you're having to probate to get a home, for example, to the beneficiary, you gotta wait, right? There's a waiting period, and they may want to sell the house really quickly, and you're gonna have to wait till there's publication, certain time frames. So you may be waiting 6 months to a year before you can actually sell the asset because you're waiting for this court process to happen. So with the trust, you're avoiding all of that. You're ready to go as soon as the person passes away. The successor trustee has the authority and the instructions to follow.
So this actually happened in my very first real estate transaction that I did. So the house that my buyers were interested in was being sold by the process was being managed by the power of attorney of the homeowner. And halfway through the transaction, actually like a week from closing, the homeowner passed away. And so it was in a will, but it had to go to a probate attorney. We had to push the closing back. I mean, fortunately, it only was pushed back a couple of weeks, but it was so stressful for everybody involved. It was stressful for the family. It was stressful for my buyers because they didn't know how long it was going to take, and they had already given notice at their housing.
Of course.
Right? And it was stressful for the other realtor and I because we're like, oh my God, is this going to fall apart? So close to being finished. But it did eventually work out, but it was a lot more complicated than it could have been, with better estate planning.
Yes, and common misconception is a power of attorney can help you after you're dead.
Now, once you're dead,
once you're dead,
over.
The power of attorney authority is gone. So then if that person, is named in the will, or they can be a personal representative, then they have to go to apply to the court to get that authority. And there is a lag time for getting the court to take action. And so, yes, exactly that scenario can happen. And creating plans now is to ease stress later. Right? For all these what ifs. So.
Yeah, for sure. So what is one thing most women don't realize about their home when they're making their estate plan?
Well, usually our home is one of our biggest assets, right? And so making sure that you have a plan for it, like I said, designating a beneficiary through a transfer on death deed, or, saying in your will what you want to have done with it, or creating a trust and putting it in there. Because what a lot of women don't realize is if you pass away with no plan and you're single, the default rules for New Mexico are it goes to your surviving spouse. If you don't have one, then it goes to your children. If you don't have any, then it starts going through your family tree, siblings, nieces and nephews, cousins. Maybe there's someone in that tree that you don't want to have your asset. Right? And so really designating, what your wishes are is really important.
So when you're in the process of making the trust, how long does it take before it actually goes into effect?
It goes into effect as soon as you sign it.
Okay.
Yes, because it is a living document, meaning that it protects you during your lifetime. Should you have any period of incapacity, your successor trustee manages the assets in your trust on your behalf. And then after you pass away, it comes into effect as well. So it's a more comprehensive protection than a will, which again only comes into play after you die. But the trust, as soon as you sign it, it's ready to protect you.
Okay. So if you were to, heaven forbid, get a bad diagnosis, right, and you needed to get your things in order quickly, because you hadn't thought, I'm perfectly healthy and fine.
Yes.
Right? So you can go right away to get that taken care of.
And so the process with me works pretty quickly as well. We have several meetings, like I said, the initial consultation to figure out what type of plan is appropriate for you. If we decide on a trust, then we move into designing what it's going to be like, where I go over from A to Z all the different options that are available. So it's very customized to the person creating it. Then we review the documents and sign them. And so, depending on the client that I'm working with, I go at their pace. If they're making decisions and they're moving along, let's move along and get this finished. And so we can do it in just a few meetings. Sometimes people want a little bit more time to digest and think, or maybe they're traveling or just have other, things. And so we, just kind of space it out. But, it can be done very quickly, especially if it's simple. And it doesn't matter how many assets you have. Sometimes people think, well, I don't have a large estate. You know, I'm not like a Bill Gates wealthy, you know?
Right.
And so it's like, you don't need to be, because trusts now aren't necessarily tax planning tools like they had been in the past. Because the federal estate tax is so high. It's $14 million, going up to $15 million next year.
That's not most of us.
Does not impact a whole lot of people,
Yeah,
right? And so sometimes people think, well, I don't have a lot. It's like, well, you have you, and if you have some assets, you want to make sure things stay private. That's enough to make a trust.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, for somebody who hasn't started their estate planning yet, what is the one thing they can do now to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, the first thing I think is to start thinking about, if something were to happen to you tomorrow, do people know what needs to be done? And if the answer is no, start figuring out, well, what would need to be done, and who are some people that could help do those things. So just sort of, kind of making a list. And then again, start to communicate, with friends, colleagues. Hey, do you have an estate plan? Do you have powers of attorney? How did you guys, get it together? If you're not ready, to talk to an attorney yet, talk amongst your friends and family and see, what have they done? And then you can sort of get some ideas as far as how they communicated, or maybe they'll say, hey, yeah, you should have power of attorney. I can do it for you. I'd be happy to be part of your plan, or talk to my attorney who helped me get my estate plan. And so, again, just starting to educate yourself about, making sure that, again, if something were to happen to you tomorrow, who can control things for your business, for your home, for children, for pets, too, right? Having plans for, dependents. And so just sort of starting to get that sort of thought process going. I do have different checklists that I can provide with people to sort of, see, do I have these things? Do I need them? Why do I need them? And just to sort of start thinking about getting those plans in place, because like you said, you don't want to wait until you're sick or you get a diagnosis, because that's just more stress, right? And you want to plan when you're healthy and nothing's wrong.
Right. Yeah. Because also when you're stressed and you're trying to digest, potentially something bad happening, that is not the time to start trying to figure out all your plans.
No, no, it can be a lot. It can be overwhelming.
You forget things.
You can, and maybe you don't make the best choices because you're desperate. You're reacting to the urgency of the situation.
You're very emotional.
Yes, exactly. So it's important to plan when nothing's wrong.
Right. When you're thinking clearly, for sure. Okay, Feliz, thank you so much for spending time with me again.
Yes, it's my pleasure.
If people want to get in touch with you, how can they find you?
Yes, so you can give me a call at 505-548-6152. You can also reach me on my website at legalllegacynm.com. That's NM for New Mexico. And Angela can reach me as well, and I'm happy to talk with people to even just find out, can I do what they need? So I do offer quick questions, phone calls with people to even just find out, are my services appropriate for what their needs are before we even move forward to having a full-blown hour meeting and going through the process.
Right. So. All right. Well, great. I'm going to put Feliz's information in the show notes. And if you liked this video, make sure you watch this one over here. This would be a great one for you to see next. And have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. In theory, that's supposed to turn.